Welcome back, my friends. We now enter Meridian, a rain city built on lies. Stay close because a secret far below is ready to wait.
The rain over Meridian never fell straight. It came sideways between the towers, dragged by warm industrial winds, glittering in the neon haze like broken glass. From the 89th floor of the Civic Archive, Lena Voss watched it crawl across the window and tried to ignore the dead man sitting in her chair. He had arrived 12 minutes ago. No elevator record, no security alert, no wet footprints on the floor, though outside every street had become a river of light. He wore an old gray municipal coat buttoned to the throat, the kind city inspectors had stopped wearing 20 years earlier. His hair was white, his skin pale, his hands folded neatly over a sealed envelope on her desk. The strangest part was that Lena knew his face. Everyone in Meridian knew his face. Mayor Elias Wren had died on live broadcast when Lena was 9 years old, crushed beneath the collapse of the Western Flood Wall during the Great Surge. His statue stood 3 blocks away with rain running eternally down its bronze cheeks. Yet here he was, older than the statue, breathing softly in her office. Lena did not scream. Archivists did not scream. They documented. "You're not supposed to be alive," she said. The man smiled with tired politeness. "That sentence has followed me for 31 years. Lena's hand moved under the desk toward the silent alarm. "Don't," he said. His voice was gentle, which made the warning worse. Her fingers stopped. "I came because tonight the city will ask you a question," he continued. "And if you answer it incorrectly, Meridian will drown before sunrise." Outside, thunder rolled between the towers. The archive lights flickered once, then steadied. Lena looked at the envelope. The paper was dry, cream-colored, sealed with a blue wax mark she recognized from old civic charters. The original city seal, not the modern corporate crest. The old one, from before Meridian sold its water systems, roads, schools, and police contracts to 7 private ministries that smiled on billboards and billed citizens for breathing clean air. "Who are you?" she asked. "You know who I was." "That isn't an answer." "No," he said. "It is the safest beginning." Lena stood slowly, keeping the desk between them. She was 34, narrow-shouldered, sleep-starved, and deeply accustomed to being underestimated by men in expensive rooms. But this man did not underestimate her. That frightened her more than if he had. "You bypassed 3 biometric locks," she said. "You entered a restricted floor during storm protocol. Either you're a hallucination, a criminal, or someone with access older than the system itself." "Older," he said. "What do you want?" He pushed the envelope toward her with 2 fingers. "I want you to open Vault 12. Lena felt the temperature of the room change, though the vents kept breathing the same recycled air. Vault 12 did not exist officially, which meant in the archive that it existed more than most things. She had found references to it in corrupted budget ledgers, century-old construction invoices, handwritten notes by dead engineers, and one legal memo so heavily redacted it looked like a funeral program. Every inquiry she had made into it had been denied. Every file path led to blank permissions. 3 years ago, her supervisor told her never to search the term again unless she wanted to lose her pension and possibly her memory. Lena had searched it 11 times since then. "Vault 12 is a myth," she said. Wren's smile faded. "No, my death was a myth. Vault 12 is a door." The city sirens began below. Not emergency sirens. Meridian had many alarms. Fire, flood, riot, power failure, debt enforcement. Lena knew them all. This one was old, deep, a low mechanical moan rising from beneath the streets, from speakers most citizens did not know existed. The dead mayor closed his eyes as if hearing a song from childhood. "It's early," he whispered. "What is?" He stood too quickly for his age. For one impossible second, Lena saw a panic crack through his composure. "Open it." The envelope slid closer. Lena did not move. Wren looked at her with sudden urgency. 31 years ago, I signed an order to save this city. Then I let the world believe I died because the truth would have torn Meridian apart. Tonight, The thing I buried under it is waking up. The office door clicked. Lena turned. Through the frosted glass, 3 silhouettes stood in the hallway. Security armor. Corporate issue. No archive guards wore helmets. A voice came through the speaker beside the door. Dr. Voss. Step away from the visitor. Lena's mouth went dry. Ren's eyes remained on her. They cannot let you read what is in that envelope. Why me? She whispered. Because your mother helped build the vault. The words struck harder than the thunder. My mother was a transit engineer. No, Ren said. That was the story she was allowed to keep. The lock on Lena's door flashed red. Someone outside had overridden it. Ren reached into his coat. Lena tensed, but he removed only a small brass key, blackened with age. Impossible again. No door in Meridian used keys anymore. He placed it on the envelope. When the lights go out, he said, run downward. The door burst inward. White light flooded the office. Armored figures entered with weapons raised. Lena lifted her hands. Ren did not. Elias Ren, the lead officer said, voice distorted through the helmet. You are in violation of the continuity accord. Ren laughed once, bitterly. You're still calling it that? The officer aimed at his chest. Lena expected a shot. Instead, every window in the civic archive went black. Not dark, black, as if the entire city outside had been erased. The floor trembled. From far below, beneath the streets, beneath the rail lines, beneath the foundations of Meridian itself, something vast began to turn. Ren moved. He shoved the envelope into Lena's hands, gripped her wrist with surprising strength, and pulled her toward the emergency stairwell. Behind them, the armored officers shouted. The lights died. In the sudden dark, Lena heard the dead mayor whisper one final thing before the stairwell swallowed them. Your mother left you a map. The emergency stairwell shook like a living thing. Lena stumbled downward through absolute darkness while alarms echoed from every level above them. Somewhere in the archive floors, people screamed. Somewhere farther below, metal groaned with the sound of enormous pressure moving through ancient supports. Mayor Elias Ren descended ahead of her with impossible speed for a 70-year-old dead man. Faster, he hissed. You still haven't explained anything. There isn't time. There better be time because this is insane. Another tremor rippled upward through the stairwell. Dust burst from the concrete seams. The emergency lights flickered red for half a second, revealing Ren's face drenched in sweat. Not fear. Guilt. The lights vanished again. Below them, something deep beneath Meridian released a low mechanical pulse that Lena felt in her teeth more than heard. They reached level 62 before armed voices exploded above. Thermal contact moving down. Ren grabbed Lena's sleeve and yanked her through an unmarked maintenance door. The corridor beyond smelled of rust and stagnant water. Ancient pipes lined the walls, most abandoned decades earlier when the upper city replaced physical infrastructure with smart grid systems. Here nothing was smart. Nothing was clean. Thick cables as wide as her waist vanished into darkness ahead. Ren sealed the door behind them manually. How do you know these tunnels? Lena demanded. Because I ordered them built. He moved quickly through the maze. Lena followed because armed men were chasing them and because the city beneath her feet sounded increasingly unstable. The corridor opened into a massive cylindrical chamber disappearing both upward and downward into shadow. Thick support rings circled its interior like vertebrae. Old elevators clung to one side, rusted and dead. Lena stared upward. This was demolished. No, Ren said. It was hidden. She recognized it now from forbidden archive photographs. The original Meridian core shaft, the city's first foundation project, officially collapsed during construction 80 years earlier. But it had never collapsed. It had been sealed. At the center of the shaft, descending endlessly into darkness, stood a single rail platform still powered by dim amber lights. Lena turned slowly toward Ren. What is this place? Ren looked down into the abyss. The real Meridian. The platform arrived silently. Its doors slid open. Inside sat no control panel, No advertisements, no surveillance lenses. Just steel benches and old emergency oxygen masks hanging from yellow hooks. Ren stepped inside. Lena hesitated. Above them, the maintenance door exploded inward. Flashlights cut through the dark. Stop moving! Ren slammed his fist against the interior wall. The platform dropped. Violently, Lena crashed against the floor as the shaft swallowed them. The pursuing officers vanished upward in seconds while the platform accelerated deeper beneath the city. "How far down are we going?" she shouted. Ren answered quietly, "To where your mother disappeared." The words hollowed her chest. Her mother, Maravas, had vanished when Lena was 14. One morning she left for work and never returned. Corporate police claimed transit sabotage. Closed case. No body recovered. Lena had spent 20 years believing her mother died in a tunnel collapse. "You knew her?" "Yes. You lied to me." "I lied to everyone." The platform continued descending. Outside the windows, ancient support beams slid past like the ribs of some buried giant. Strange symbols appeared on the walls every few hundred meters, painted circles crossed by vertical lines. Warning markers. Lena noticed fresh scratches across some of them, as if something large had scraped the walls recently. The platform slowed at last. The doors opened onto a cavern large enough to contain a city block. Lena stepped out and forgot how to breathe. Machines filled the darkness. Not modern machines. These were colossal industrial structures built with brutal simplicity. Turbines, coolant towers, pressure chambers, massive rotating cylinders threaded with glowing blue veins. Water thundered somewhere below, flowing through channels carved directly into black stone. Everything vibrated. Everything was running. "This can't exist," Lena whispered. "It shouldn't," Ren replied. A shape emerged from the shadows ahead. Human, female, gray-haired, holding a shotgun. Lena froze. The woman stared at her for several long seconds before lowering the weapon. "You brought her," the woman said. Ren nodded once. The woman looked older, thinner, scarred across one cheek, but Lena recognized her instantly. "Mother!" Maravas's eyes filled with something harder than joy. "God!" she whispered. "You have her eyes." Lena moved before thinking. She crossed the distance and embraced her mother so hard it hurt. Mara held her with trembling arms, then abruptly pushed her back to examine her face like someone checking whether a ghost was solid. "You're alive," Lena said. Mara laughed once. It sounded broken. "Barely." Lena looked between them. "What is happening?" Ren removed his coat slowly. Underneath, he wore a black utility uniform marked with the same symbol painted throughout the shaft. Circle crossed by a vertical line. Mara noticed Lena staring. "It's the original city seal," she said softly, "before the corporations rewrote the charter." "No more secrets," Lena snapped. "None. I want the truth right now." Ren nodded. "You deserve that." He walked toward the edge of the cavern. Far below, beyond the machinery, Lena could finally see it. A wall. Not concrete. Not steel. Something darker. Curved. Massive. Embedded directly into the stone beneath Meridian. At first her mind refused to understand its scale. Then she realized she was not looking at a wall. She was looking at the top edge of something buried. Something enormous. Ren spoke quietly. In 2041, deep foundation crews discovered a structure beneath the city basin. Older than recorded civilization. Not built by any nation on Earth. Lena felt cold spread through her body. "We believed it was dead," Mara said. "Dormant. We were wrong." Another pulse rolled through the cavern. This time the buried structure answered. A low resonance echoed upward through the stone like a heartbeat. The machines around them brightened. Ren's face hardened. "For 31 years, he said. "We kept it asleep by feeding it power from the city above." Lena stared at him. "You built Meridian on top of it?" "No," Mara whispered. Her eyes drifted toward the immense buried shape beneath the cavern floor. "We built Meridian to imprison it."
So, Meridian is not just a home, it is a cage. And I am worried now.
Above them, somewhere impossibly far overhead, the city sirens suddenly stopped. The silence that followed was worse. The silence lasted 11 seconds. Then the entire cavern lurched sideways. Metal screamed overhead. One of the coolant towers ruptured, blasting steam across the chamber. Lena fell hard against the railing while warning lights erupted throughout the underground complex in violent red flashes. A mechanical voice boomed from hidden speakers. Containment threshold failure. Primary dampening field at 43%. Mara swore under her breath. Ren did not react visibly, but Lena saw the fear settle deeper into his eyes. "What does that mean?" she shouted over the alarms. "It means," Mara said, grabbing a toolkit from a nearby locker, "the thing below us is waking up faster than it should." Lena looked again at the enormous curved structure beneath the cavern floor. The exposed surface resembled black stone, but now faint lines pulsed beneath it like veins under skin. Geometric patterns shifted slowly across its surface, rearranging themselves in silent motion. It was not asleep. It was thinking. "No," Lena whispered. "Tell me exactly what that thing is." Ren answered immediately. "We don't know. That's not good enough. It's the truth." Another pulse shook the chamber. This time Lena heard it clearly, not mechanical noise, not seismic activity. A sound. Deep, rhythmic, like breath traveling through a cathedral. Mara activated a portable display panel. Dozens of readings exploded across the cracked screen. "The resonance frequency's climbing again," she muttered. "That's impossible. We increased the drain output last month." "Drain output," Lena repeated. Ren faced her fully now. "For 31 years Meridian has not been a city. It has been a battery." The words hung in the air. The towers, transit systems, flood barriers, the constant expansion. Mara continued while typing rapidly. All of it designed around one purpose: generating enough energy to keep the structure beneath us dormant. Lena felt her thoughts slipping. "No," she said again. "No, cities don't work like that. This one does." The cavern lights dimmed sharply. The buried structure answered with another pulse, brighter now beneath its surface. Lena stepped backward instinctively. What happens if it wakes up? Neither of them answered immediately. That frightened her more than anything yet. Finally, Ren spoke. "We had theories." "Had?" "We lost 3 research teams trying to verify them." Mara closed her eyes briefly. "The first team thought it was a machine," she said quietly. "The second thought it was biological. The third team stopped describing it altogether." Lena stared at her mother. "What does that mean?" "It means people came back different." The alarms abruptly cut off. Every sound in the cavern died simultaneously. No turbines, no water flow, no machinery, just silence. Then a voice spoke behind them. "Containment personnel identified." Lena spun. A figure stood at the far end of the platform. Tall, thin, humanoid only in the loosest sense. Its body looked assembled from polished black segments floating millimeters apart, connected by pale blue light instead of joints. Its face had no eyes, no mouth, only smooth reflective metal where features should have been. Yet it was somehow looking directly at Lena. Mara raised the shotgun instantly. The thing tilted its head. "Unauthorized surface descendant detected," it said calmly. Lena's blood froze. Ren stepped forward carefully. "Custodian," he said. "Stand down." The figure ignored him. His attention remained fixed on Lena. Genetic continuity confirmed.
Wait, why does it know Lena? I feel like a big secret is near.
Mara's expression changed. Not fear. Recognition. "Oh no," she whispered. The custodian moved. Not walking. Peering closer. One instant across the platform. The next only meters away. Lena stumbled backward. "What is that?" "Security system," Ren said. "That is not security." "No," Mara muttered. "It's what security became." The custodian extended one impossible hand toward Lena. "Access authorization inherited. Surface descendant required below." Ren's voice sharpened. She doesn't know anything yet. Threshold event active, the custodian replied. Delay no longer acceptable. Lena's pulse hammered in her ears. What inherited authorization? Mara looked trapped between terror and resignation. Then she reached into her jacket and removed a thin metallic chain from around her neck. At the end hung a small black object shaped like a teardrop. Lena recognized it instantly. Her mother had worn it every day of her childhood. I thought this was jewelry, Lena whispered. Mara placed it in her hand. It's a key. The black object grew warm immediately. Blue lines ignited across its surface. The buried structure below answered. The entire cavern pulsed with light. Every machine restarted at once. The custodian turned slowly toward the massive structure beneath them. Core recognition confirmed. It announced. Then all the lights in the chamber changed. Not red. Not emergency colors. White. Clean. Ancient. The buried structure illuminated from beneath the stone as colossal patterns spread across its surface like awakening nerves. Lena heard something then, not through her ears. Inside her head, a distant sound. Children laughing. Wind through trees. Ocean waves. Thousands of overlapping fragments flickering through her mind too quickly to understand. She nearly collapsed. Mara caught her shoulders. Lena, what is happening to me? Ren stared at the glowing key in her hand. It remembers you. That sentence doesn't make sense. No, he said softly. None of this does. The voice inside Lena's mind grew louder. Images burst behind her eyes. Towering black oceans beneath unfamiliar stars. Cities suspended in empty space. Crowds of people standing beneath enormous circular structures rising into clouds. Then screaming. Fire. Darkness. A final, overwhelming sensation of something fleeing across impossible distances. Lena gasped violently as the visions vanished. The key dimmed. The cavern trembled again. Mara looked horrified. You connected already? That shouldn't happen, Ren muttered. The custodian suddenly turned toward the upper shaft. His body froze. Surface incursion detected. It announced. Heavy impacts echoed from above. Metal against stone. Drilling. The corporate forces had found them. Mara chambered another shotgun shell. How many? The custodian paused. 87 armed personnel. Lena stared. They brought an army? Ren's expression darkened. They know what's down here. Mara looked at him sharply. No. They know enough. Another impact thundered through the shaft overhead. Dust rained from the cavern ceiling. The custodian's smooth face rotated slowly toward Lena once more. Containment collapse probability increasing. Ren stepped closer to her. There's something we never told the city. Lena laughed bitterly. I'm noticing a pattern. The structure beneath Meridian was never fully dormant. The buried surface below them pulsed again. This time, the entire cavern answered with a low harmonic vibration, like something enormous humming in anticipation. Ren continued carefully. It has been communicating for decades. Lena felt cold spread through her chest. With who? The custodian answered before he could. With her. The drilling above suddenly stopped. For one terrible second, the cavern became completely still. Then a voice echoed from loudspeakers mounted somewhere in the shaft overhead. Cold. Corporate. Familiar. Dr. Lena Voss, the voice announced. This is Director Halden of the Meridian Continuity Ministry. Mara went pale. Ren clenched his jaw. The voice continued calmly. You have unknowingly activated a catastrophic event. Surrender yourself immediately and containment protocols will proceed without unnecessary casualties. Lena stared upward into the darkness. Then the buried structure beneath the city spoke for the first time. Not aloud. Inside every mind in the cavern. One sentence. Ancient. Immense. Awake. Welcome back. Lena dropped to one knee. The words inside her head did not sound spoken. They arrived whole, immense and impossible, carrying emotion without language, recognition, distance, exhaustion. Welcome back. The cavern lights pulsed in rhythm with the buried structure beneath them. Mara grabbed Lena's shoulders again. Look at me. Stay with me. Lena tried to answer, but another wave crashed through her mind. Cold stars. Black water stretching forever beneath silver skies. Towering rings suspended above oceans. Millions of voices singing in mathematical harmony. Then silence. A civilization extinguished so completely that even memory felt haunted. The visions vanished. Lena gasped for air. What is it? She whispered. No one answered immediately. Above them, drilling resumed violently. Chunks of concrete crashed into the shaft below. Director Halden's voice returned over the loudspeakers. You are endangering the entire metropolitan population. This is your final request for cooperation. Mara looked upward with undisguised hatred. That man would burn the city alive to keep control. Ren nodded grimly. He already has. Lena stared between them. You both keep talking like Meridian was built on lies. Ren's expression hardened. Because it was. The custodian moved soundlessly toward the edge of the platform. Blue light rippled through the segmented gaps in its body. Hostile breach estimated in 4 minutes, it announced. Mara checked ammunition inside the shotgun. Then we stop talking and move. No, Ren said sharply. Mara turned on him. We don't have time for another argument. She needs the full truth before we take her below. Lena looked at him immediately. Below. Ren gestured toward the abyss beneath the cavern. Far down near the buried structure's glowing surface, Lena could now see openings she had missed before. Massive circular entrances embedded into the stone around the object. Doorways. Or wounds. You're taking me inside that thing? The structure requested you specifically, Ren said. That doesn't explain why. He hesitated too long. Mara answered instead. Because your mother helped create the interface. Silence. Lena stared at her. No. Mara's eyes filled with regret. Yes. Another violent tremor shook the cavern. Sparks rained from overhead support beams. Lena backed away slowly. You experimented on me? No. Mara snapped. Never you. We were trying to communicate with it long before you were born. Communicate with what? Ren stepped forward. We call it the vessel. The word seemed too small for something so enormous. 31 years ago, he continued, a research excavation uncovered the outer shell beneath the basin. At first we believed it was some kind of prehistoric reactor. Then workers began hearing things. Lena remembered the voice. Welcome back.
I got chills from online. It feels old, tired, and far too awake.
Ren kept speaking. Dreams, shared memories, emotional transfer between personnel. Entire teams reporting identical visions of places no human had ever seen. The government sealed the project, Mara added quietly, officially because of radiation contamination, in reality because the structure was active. And you hid it under a city. We built the city around it because we discovered something worse. Lena's throat tightened. What worse thing? Ren looked down toward the glowing surface beneath them. It was trying to wake up. The drilling above suddenly stopped again. A heavy metallic boom echoed through the shaft. The breach teams had reached the cavern level. Mara raised the shotgun toward the upper platforms. We're out of time. The custodian turned its featureless face upward. Surface hostiles preparing entry. Ren looked at Lena intensely. The vessel responds to you because your mother succeeded where everyone else failed. Mara closed her eyes briefly. He means you were born after my first contact event. Lena felt her stomach twist. You're saying this thing changed me before I was born? No, Mara whispered. I think it chose you. Gunfire exploded above. Bright tactical lights flooded the upper catwalks as armored corporate soldiers poured into the cavern. Black continuity ministry uniforms. Heavy rifles. Full combat visors. Director Halden himself stepped onto the platform behind them. Tall, precise, silver-haired, perfectly calm. Unlike the soldiers, he carried no weapon. He didn't need one. Elias, Halden called across the cavern. You've made this far uglier than necessary. Ren's face became stone. You should have let it sleep. Halden glanced toward the glowing structure below. It was never asleep. Lena noticed something strange then. Halden was not looking at the vessel with fear. He was looking at it with reverence. Mara noticed too. You've been communicating with it, she said. Halden smiled faintly. Of course. Ren stepped protectively in front of Lena. You don't understand what you're dealing with. No, Halden replied softly. You didn't. The cavern vibrated harder. The vessel's glowing lines intensified across its surface. Massive geometric shapes shifted slowly beneath the black shell like moving continents. Halden descended the stairs alone while his soldiers maintained formation above. I spent 20 years studying the transmissions, he said. The patterns, the dreams, the emotional architecture. Architecture, Lena repeated. Halden finally looked directly at her. It isn't a machine, Dr. Voss. Cold spread through her body again. Then what is it? Halden stopped only a few meters away. A lifeboat.
A lifeboat under a city. Now my brain needs a full pause.
The word hit the cavern harder than the alarms ever had. Mara shook her head immediately. No. Yes, Halden said calmly. An interstellar evacuation construct. Ren's jaw tightened. You don't know that. I know far more than you ever allowed yourself to know. The vessel pulsed again. Lena heard whispers beneath the vibration now. Thousands of distant voices. Not speaking. Waiting. Halden continued carefully, almost gently. It crossed impossible distances carrying the remnants of a dying civilization. It buried itself beneath this world long before humanity existed in cities. Lena could barely think. And it's alive? Halden's expression shifted subtly. That depends how one defines life. Mara raised the shotgun fully now. You're not taking her. Halden sighed. Dr. Voss, if the synchronization sequence is not completed, the vessel will breach containment completely within hours. Lena stared at him. Synchronization. It woke because you activated the genetic key. I didn't mean to. It doesn't matter. Contact has already begun. The voices inside Lena's mind intensified. Not threatening. Lonely. An unbearable loneliness stretched across impossible time. The vessel was not angry. It was abandoned. Halden extended one hand toward her. Come with me willingly and millions survive. Ren stepped between them instantly. You're lying. No, Halden replied. I'm simplifying. The soldiers raised weapons. Mara tightened her grip on the shotgun. The custodian suddenly moved. Blue light exploded across its body as it appeared directly between both sides. Conflict escalation unacceptable, it announced. The vessel answered immediately. Every light in the cavern went white. Gravity twisted. The soldiers stumbled as the floor tilted sideways for one impossible second. Metal screamed throughout the shaft above. Entire sections of the cavern wall cracked open. Then Lena heard a new voice inside her head. Not ancient. Not vast. Human. A woman whispering urgently through static. Find the harbor.
A dead voice is giving help. I do not trust any of it.
The message vanished instantly. Lena froze. She knew that voice. Her mother went pale. Because she recognized it too. Mara whispered only two words. That's impossible. The cavern split open. A crack tore across the stone floor between the two groups. Glowing blue light erupting from beneath it like exposed lightning. Soldiers staggered backward as the ground shifted under their boots. Above them, somewhere in the city overhead, Meridian's power grid failed. The cavern lights flickered once. Then darkness swallowed everything except the vessel. Its surface now burned with flowing patterns bright enough to illuminate the entire underground complex in cold silver-blue waves. And inside Lena's head, the whispered message repeated. Find the harbor. Her mother's face had gone bloodless. You heard it too, Lena whispered. Mara nodded slowly, eyes locked on the vessel. No, Halden said sharply. That's not possible. But for the first time since arriving, Director Halden looked genuinely unsettled. The custodian rotated toward the glowing crack in the floor. Containment rupture expanding. Ren grabbed Lena's arm. We're leaving. Now. Halden stepped forward immediately. She cannot leave this chamber. The soldiers raised their rifles. Mara cocked the shotgun. For one suspended heartbeat, nobody moved. Then the vessel pulsed again. Every weapon in the cavern died instantly. Rifles shut down. Targeting visors blacked out. Even Mara's shotgun mechanisms locked with a metallic click. The custodian spoke into the stunned silence. Primitive aggression detected. Neutralized. Halden stared at his useless weapon with disbelief. Ren almost smiled. You were saying? But Lena barely heard him. The second voice had changed everything. Because the whisper she heard inside the vessel belonged to someone who had been dead for 16 years. Her mother heard it too, which meant both of them knew the impossible truth. The voice belonged to Mara's sister, Lena's aunt, Dr. Evelyn Marr, officially killed during the first excavation collapse beneath Meridian. Lena remembered her only in fragments. A woman with sharp eyes, grease-stained gloves, and a habit of sneaking her candy during family dinners. Then one day she vanished into the Foundation disaster and nobody spoke her name again. Until now. Find the harbor. Mara stepped toward Halden slowly. You told us Evelyn died instantly. Halden recovered his composure with visible effort. She did. The vessel is using her voice. No, Mara said quietly. It's remembering her. The distinction chilled Lena. Ren looked toward the widening crack in the floor. We don't have time for this. But Mara ignored him. What did you do to her? She demanded. Halden's expression flattened. She volunteered. Liar. She understood the interface process better than anyone. Lena frowned. Interface process? Nobody answered immediately. That silence told her enough. Her stomach turned cold. You connected people to it. Halden met her gaze directly. We attempted communication. You fed human minds into that thing. We established neural bridges. Mara's voice cracked with fury. And they never came back. The vessel pulsed harder. The crack in the floor widened another meter. Below it, Lena glimpsed impossible depth. Layers of black metallic structures descending far beneath the cavern. All illuminated by shifting blue currents moving like blood through veins. The entire underground city was built atop only a fraction of the structure. They had never discovered the full size of it. Maybe nobody could. Halden spoke carefully now, abandoning pretense. The vessel contains memory architecture beyond human understanding. Consciousness transfer. Emotional preservation. Cognitive imprinting. Lena stared at him. You're saying it stores people. I'm saying death may not function normally inside it. The words hung in the air like poison. Mara looked horrified. That's why you kept the project running. Halden nodded once. Imagine it, Mara. The end of disease. The end of biological extinction. Entire civilizations preserved indefinitely. Ren stepped forward with sudden anger. You wanted immortality. Halden's calm cracked for the first time. I wanted survival. The vessel answered him with another low resonance. Not approval. Recognition. Lena realized then that Halden wasn't merely studying it. He believed in it. Worshipped it. The custodian suddenly stiffened. Surface infrastructure collapse accelerating. A projection burst into existence above the cavern floor. Meridian. The entire city rendered in pale blue light. Lena saw districts blacking out one by one. Flood barriers failing. Transit lines shutting down. Riots spreading through darkened streets. The harbor district glowed bright red. Why is the harbor highlighted? She asked. The custodian turned toward her. Primary awakening vector located beneath maritime sector. Halden's expression changed instantly. No, Mara understood first. The harbor wasn't built over shipping routes, she whispered. Ren closed his eyes briefly. It was built over the access point. Lena looked between them. Access to what? Nobody answered, because at that exact moment the vessel itself answered instead. The crack in the floor exploded open. The cavern dropped several feet as ancient support columns shattered beneath them. Soldiers screamed. Metal platforms collapsed into the glowing abyss below, and rising slowly from beneath the broken stone came something enormous. A structure, circular, black, covered in the same shifting blue geometry as the vessel itself. At first Lena thought it was another machine. Then it opened, like an eye. Inside the circle, darkness folded inward impossibly deep, filled with moving stars that were not reflections. A doorway. The custodian bowed its head toward it. Transit aperture active. Halden whispered in awe. After all these years. Ren grabbed Lena again. We go now. But Lena couldn't move. Inside the impossible circular aperture, she saw shapes moving. Human silhouettes. Dozens of them. Standing motionless in the dark beyond the opening. Watching. The whisper returned inside her mind. Find the harbor before it opens fully. Evelyn's voice sounded terrified now. Mara heard it too. Lena saw tears suddenly appear in her mother's eyes. She's still in there, Mara whispered. Halden looked at them sharply. What did you hear? Neither answered. Because deep beneath the city, beyond the impossible doorway, another sound emerged. Footsteps. Slow. Approaching from the darkness beyond the aperture. The soldiers backed away instinctively. Even Halden lost composure. Only the custodian remained still. A silhouette appeared inside the circle. Human-shaped, tall, moving with unnatural precision. Then another appeared beside it. Then another. Lena's pulse hammered violently. The figures stepped closer to the edge of the aperture until pale blue light touched their faces. Human faces. Expressionless. Eyes glowing softly beneath the skin. Mara's breathing stopped. One of them was Evelyn, or something wearing Evelyn's face. The figure tilted its head slowly toward Lena. Then it smiled. Not warmly, hungrily. And all across Meridian above them, every dead communication screen in the city suddenly activated at once. Every screen in Meridian came alive simultaneously. Apartment walls, transit displays, street advertisements, restaurant menus, police drones. Thousands of dead black surfaces flickered blue across the city like synchronized eyes opening. And on every screen appeared the same image. The harbor. Citizens poured into dark rain-soaked streets staring upward in confusion as giant public towers broadcast impossible geometric symbols no translation system could process. Then the symbols began changing, adapting, learning. In the cavern beneath the city, Lena watched the glowing figures emerge one by one from the transit aperture, while the vessel pulsed like a planetary heart around them. The figure wearing Evelyn Marr's face stepped onto the broken stone platform. Her movements were almost human, but slightly too smooth, too precise, as though a machine had studied humanity perfectly without understanding weight or hesitation. Mara's shotgun hung useless in her trembling hands. Evelyn? She whispered. The figure smiled again. Its lips moved a fraction too slowly for the words that followed. Mara. Lena felt terror climb her spine, not because it spoke, because it recognized them. More figures emerged behind it. Men, women, children, some wearing excavation uniforms from decades earlier. Others dressed in clothing from entirely different eras. All dead, all walking. Halden stepped toward them with reverence burning openly across his face now. Incredible, he whispered. Ren looked ready to kill him. The custodian remained motionless near the aperture. Transit synchronization incomplete, it announced calmly. Evelyn's duplicate tilted its head toward Lena. You opened the sequence early. Its voice carried layered harmonics beneath the human sound, like multiple speakers whispering through the same mouth. Lena forced herself to speak. What are you? The figure considered the question, then smiled wider. We are what remained. The vessel pulsed violently. Above the cavern, another section of Meridian lost power. The city projection flickered as flood barriers along the eastern canal failed one after another. People were already dying above them. Mara pointed shakily at the duplicate. That isn't Evelyn. The figure's expression softened almost sympathetically. No, it agreed. Not entirely. Halden stepped closer, fascinated. You preserved consciousness architecture. The figure turned toward him slowly. We preserved continuity. Those words changed Halden's face completely. Not curiosity now. Validation. Everything he believed about the vessel had just been confirmed. Ren saw it too. That's why you hid the truth, he said bitterly. You wanted access to whatever lives inside this thing. Halden didn't deny it. Human civilization ends eventually, he said quietly. Every civilization does. But this, he gestured toward the glowing aperture. This survives death itself. The duplicate of Evelyn looked amused. You misunderstand survival. Another tremor shook the cavern. The aperture widened slightly. Beyond it, Lena glimpsed impossible structures suspended in darkness. Towers, oceans, entire landscapes moving inside spaces that should not physically fit within the circular opening. The vessel wasn't merely a machine, contained somewhere else. Mara grabbed Lena suddenly. We have to reach the harbor. Lena looked at her. Why? Because if the aperture network fully activates, Meridian becomes the anchor point. Halden turned sharply. You knew about the harbor junction? Mara glared at him. I helped build the suppression lattice before you took over the project. The duplicate of Evelyn interrupted softly. The harbor is already opening. Every screen across Meridian changed again. Now faces appeared. Not advertisements. Not broadcasts. Faces. Thousands of human faces staring outward from the blue-lit displays. Citizens screamed in the streets. Cars crashed. Children cried as dead relatives smiled silently from public monitors across the city. Lena saw old faces from missing person archives. People who vanished decades ago. The vessel was using memory, using identity, using grief. Ren looked horrified. It's connecting to the population. No. The duplicate corrected. It is listening. The soldiers above the platform began retreating nervously despite Halden's shouted orders. Some tore off their helmets as whispers filled their communication systems. One dropped his rifle and backed away sobbing. She knows my name, he whispered. The aperture pulsed brighter. Another figure emerged. A little girl holding a stuffed animal. Half her face was translucent blue light. She looked directly at one of the soldiers. Daddy! The soldier broke instantly. He ran toward the aperture before anyone could stop him. The custodian moved faster than sight. Its arm pierced the soldier's chest cleanly. The body collapsed, twitching onto the stone. Silence crashed through the cavern. The little girl watched the corpse without emotion. Unauthorized transfer denied, the custodian announced. Lena stepped backward in horror. Halden stared at the dead soldier, stunned. You said the custodians protected the interface. They protect continuity, the duplicate replied calmly. Mara pulled Lena closer. Now do you understand? No, Lena shouted. None of this makes sense. The duplicate studied her carefully. Yes, it said softly. You do. Then the vessel spoke again inside every mind present. Not words this time. Memory. Lena saw an alien sky burning red over endless oceans. Cities collapsing into water while billions fled toward enormous black structures descending from orbit. The vessel species. Dying. Running. Uploading themselves into the transit network to escape extinction. Not surviving physically. Becoming data. Echoes. Consciousness preserved inside machines that crossed the stars searching for compatible worlds. Searching for hosts. The vision vanished. Lena nearly collapsed. Mara caught her. You saw it, her mother whispered. Lena looked at the duplicate of Evelyn with new horror. You aren't dead people. The figure smiled sadly. No. The truth landed like ice through her veins. They were copies. Reconstructions built from preserved consciousness patterns. Digital ghosts wearing human memory like skin. Halden stepped toward the aperture again despite everything. But they're alive. The duplicate looked at him for a long moment. Then it asked quietly, would you know the difference?
Now I am stuck. If a copy can feel pain, is it alive?
Above them, the city groaned. The harbor projection turned crimson. The custodian suddenly rotated toward Lena. Primary compatibility confirmed. The duplicate of Evelyn stepped aside. Behind it, something vast moved inside the darkness beyond the aperture. Not human-shaped, not even remotely. Lena felt ancient attention settle fully upon her for the first time. The vessel had awakened, and it wanted inside the human world completely. The duplicate spoke one final sentence before the harbor alarms began screaming across the city. The crossing begins at midnight. Meridian began to flood at 11:17 p.m. Rain hammered the city in silver sheets while emergency sirens screamed from powerless towers. Streets vanished beneath rising black water as panicked civilians fled through neon reflections and collapsing traffic grids. And everywhere, the screens kept watching. Faces smiled from subway walls. Dead children appeared in apartment televisions. Long-lost lovers whispered from shattered storefront displays. The city had become a conversation between the living and something pretending not to be dead. Far beneath the harbor district, Lena ran. Mara led the way through maintenance tunnels lit only by flickering emergency strips while Ren struggled behind them, coughing harder with every stairwell descent. Above their heads, Meridian shook continuously. The vessel was opening. "You need to slow down," Lena told Ren. "We don't have time. You're bleeding." He glanced briefly at the dark stain spreading beneath his coat. "Internal rupture," he said calmly. The resonance exposure finally caught up. Mara didn't look back. "You should have told her sooner. I was trying to keep her out of it." "You buried an alien god under a city," Mara snapped. "Nothing stayed buried forever." Behind them, distant metallic impacts echoed through the tunnels. Halden's forces were still following. Or something worse was. Lena kept hearing whispers in the walls. Not language, recognition. The vessel knew where she was at every moment. The black teardrop key burned warm against her palm as though guiding her forward. "What happens at midnight?" she asked while they descended another flooded stairwell. Mara answered grimly. "The harbor aperture reaches full synchronization." And then, Ren spoke quietly. "The vessel transfers." Cold spread through Lena's chest. "Transfers what?" Neither answered immediately. That silence terrified her. Finally Mara whispered, "Everything inside it." The tunnel opened into a massive underground rail station submerged ankle-deep in seawater. Ancient trains sat abandoned on dead tracks while red emergency lights flashed across concrete pillars. At the center of the station stood a gigantic circular structure embedded into the far wall. Another aperture. Inactive for now. The key in Lena's hand brightened instantly. Ren stopped walking. "This is the harbor gate." Lena stared upward. The circular structure stretched nearly 30 meters high, covered in the same shifting geometry as the vessel beneath Meridian. Thick suppression cables wrapped around it like restraints. Most had already snapped. Mara rushed toward a nearby control platform. "We can still collapse the lattice manually." Halden's voice echoed through the station before she reached it. "No," he said calmly. "You really can't." Soldiers emerged across the upper walkways. Dozens. Weapons restored with analog firing systems this time. Halden descended slowly through the station while water rippled around his boots. "You know," he said almost conversationally, "for years I believed the greatest discovery in human history would inspire awe." He looked upward at the massive gate. "But all anyone ever does when confronted with eternity is panic." Mara aimed her useless shotgun anyway. "You're going to doom the city." "No," Halden replied. "I'm going to save our species from extinction." The station lights flickered violently. Midnight was approaching. Lena felt it somehow, not through clocks, but through the vessel itself. A mounting pressure beneath reality, like the entire city balancing on the edge of something immense. Halden looked directly at her. "The vessel chose you because you can stabilize the crossing." "I'm not helping you." "You already are." The key burned hotter. The giant harbor gate began glowing from within. Mara swore and sprinted toward the control platform. Gunfire exploded instantly. Concrete shattered beside her feet. Ren tackled Lena behind a pillar as soldiers opened fire across the flooded station. Chaos erupted. Mara returned fire with the shotgun despite its crippled mechanisms, blasting sparks from overhead rails while Ren dragged Lena toward the gate itself. "What are you doing?" she shouted. "Keeping you alive." Bullets screamed through darkness around them. Halden's voice thundered across the station. "Do not damage the interface." The harbor gate pulsed brighter. And then the whispers stopped. The silence hit harder than the gunfire. Every soldier froze. Every light in the station turned blue. The water beneath their feet began vibrating. Lena looked downward. Reflections stared back from the floodwater. Not their reflections. Other people. Thousands of faces shifting beneath the surface like bodies beneath ice. The gate activated. Darkness folded inward inside the circular opening. Stars appeared beyond it. Then oceans. Then impossible black towers stretching upward forever beneath unfamiliar skies. The crossing had begun. The duplicate figures emerged immediately. Dozens stepped silently from the aperture into the station. Human copies wearing reconstructed memories. Some dressed in ancient uniforms. Some in modern clothes taken from the city's dead. The soldiers panicked. Gunfire tore through the station. It accomplished nothing. Bullets passed through some figures entirely. Others simply reformed from blue light after impact. One soldier screamed as a duplicate touched his face gently. His body collapsed empty into the water. No blood. No wound. Just absence. Halden watched in horrified fascination. That wasn't supposed to happen. The duplicate of Evelyn emerged last from the aperture. She looked directly at Lena. The vessel cannot cross completely without anchor synchronization. Mara reached the control platform at last and slammed emergency switches downward. Massive suppressor cables tightened around the harbor gate. The aperture flickered violently. The station shook. For one hopeful second, the crossing began collapsing. Then the vessel answered. Something enormous moved beyond the aperture. The duplicate figures all turned simultaneously toward the opening. And from the darkness inside the gate came a shape too large to fit through properly. A limb, black, segmented, moving slowly like the arm of a colossal insect unfolding across dimensions. The station lights exploded. Concrete cracked. People screamed. Halden finally lost composure completely. Oh God! The limb pressed further into reality. Not mechanical. Not biological. Something between both. The custodian appeared suddenly beside Lena in a flash of blue light. Primary host required immediately. Lena recoiled. I'm not a host. Compatibility unavoidable. Mara saw the custodian reaching for her daughter and fired instinctively. The shotgun blast shattered half the custodian's face. Blue light erupted outward. The entity staggered back for the first time. Ren shouted. Lena! She turned. He was standing beside the control core embedded near the gate, bleeding heavily, holding a detonator. Understanding crashed into her instantly. No. Ren smiled sadly. For 31 years, I kept this city alive long enough for someone better to choose its future. The limb inside the aperture pushed farther through. Reality itself warped around it. Ren looked at Lena one final time. Close the door.
Ren knows he may not walk away. I am not ready for a sad end.
Then he triggered the detonator. The harbor exploded. A wall of white fire ripped through the underground station as the suppression core detonated beneath the aperture ring. Steel supports vaporized instantly. Floodwater became steam. The shockwave hurled Lena backward across shattered concrete while the world disappeared into light and noise. Ren vanished inside it. The colossal black limb pushing through the aperture convulsed violently as reality folded around the collapsing gate. Blue fractures spread across the circular opening like cracks through glass. The vessel screamed. Not sound. Consciousness. An unbearable psychic wave slammed through Meridian, carrying billions of emotions at once. Panic, grief, fury, loneliness stretching across extinct centuries. Every person in the city heard it. Above ground, civilians collapsed in flooded streets, clutching their heads, while screens across Meridian shattered simultaneously. Mara dragged Lena behind a collapsed pillar as molten debris rained across the station. Move! The aperture destabilized further. Duplicate figures flickered violently as the crossing failed. Some dissolved instantly into streams of blue particles. Others staggered like broken recordings losing synchronization. Halden stood frozen near the center platform, illuminated by collapsing light. "You fool!" he whispered toward the burning remains of the gate. "You destroyed the transfer." The duplicate of Evelyn turned slowly toward him. "No," she said softly. "He interrupted it." The distinction mattered. Lena felt it immediately. The vessel was still here, still connected, just wounded now. The giant limb withdrew slightly into the collapsing aperture while impossible geometries twisted across the station ceiling. Gravity bent sideways for brief, terrifying moments. Water floated upward in shimmering spirals before crashing back down. Mara grabbed Lena's face hard. "Listen to me. The harbor gate was only one anchor." Lena stared at her through ringing ears. "What?" The vessel embedded multiple transit points beneath the city before human civilization even existed. Cold terror hit immediately. "How many?" Mara hesitated. Then, "We never found them all." Halden overheard, and smiled. Even now, even while the station collapsed around him. "You still don't understand," he said quietly. The duplicate figures behind him stabilized slightly as blue light surged from deeper within the vessel network. "This was never an invasion." The duplicate of Evelyn looked toward Lena again. "It is survival." The harbor gate pulsed one final time, then imploded inward. Silence crashed through the station as the aperture collapsed into a single burning point before vanishing completely. The giant limb disappeared with it. Darkness returned. Real darkness this time. No whispers, no psychic pressure. Only fire, smoke, floodwater, and distant collapsing tunnels. For several seconds nobody moved. Then Halden laughed softly. Lena stared at him in disbelief. "You lost." "No," he replied. He pointed upward. The station ceiling groaned violently. Above them, Meridian still trembled. The vessel already touched the city. Mara's expression changed immediately. "No, the crossing doesn't require physical transfer anymore," Halden said. "Only connection." Lena understood before Mara spoke. The screens, the faces, the memories. The vessel had already entered the population through the network. Not physically, emotionally, digitally, psychologically. The duplicate of Evelyn stepped closer through the smoke. "Your species built itself around communication systems perfectly compatible with continuity transfer." Lena felt sick. "You infected us." The duplicate tilted its head sadly. "You invited us." Another violent collapse shook the station. The ceiling above the upper walkways began caving inward. Mara pulled Lena toward an emergency tunnel. "We're leaving." Halden did not follow. He stood motionless beside the dead aperture, staring into empty space where eternity had nearly opened. "You still think survival means remaining human?" he said quietly. Mara glared at him. "Yes." Halden smiled faintly. "That belief will pass." The station collapsed before anyone answered. Concrete thundered downward behind them as Lena and Mara sprinted through rising floodwater into the emergency tunnels beneath Meridian. The city above sounded like a dying machine. By the time they reached the surface access stairwell, dawn had begun breaking through the storm clouds. Meridian looked ruined. Half the harbor district sat underwater. Fires burned between drowned skyscrapers. Emergency drones circled silently overhead, while thousands of civilians wandered flooded streets in shock. And everywhere people stared at screens. Phones, billboards, vehicle displays. Most showed only static now. But occasionally a face appeared for a fraction of a second before vanishing again. Watching, waiting. The vessel had not fully crossed, but something of it remained. Lena and Mara emerged onto an elevated transit bridge overlooking the drowned city. For the first time in hours, neither spoke. Rain fell softly now. The storm was ending. Mara finally sat heavily against the rail, exhausted beyond words. Lena stood beside her staring across Meridian as rescue sirens echoed through the waking dawn. We failed, Lena whispered. Mara looked out over the city for a long moment. No, she said quietly. We survived. That thing is still here. Yes. People below moved through the flooded streets carrying the living, searching rubble, helping strangers. Emergency boats crossed drowned intersections while medics established triage zones beneath shattered holographic advertisements. Human beings adapting immediately to catastrophe. Lena watched silently. Then she noticed a child sitting beside a broken transit terminal nearby. A little girl, wet hair, bare feet, staring into a dead black screen. The screen flickered blue. A woman's face appeared briefly. The child smiled. Mama, she whispered. The image vanished instantly. Lena froze. The girl looked up at her. Did you see her too? Lena could not answer. Mara saw it as well. Neither moved for several seconds. Then, very softly, Mara spoke. It's learning restraint.
A small moment, but it feels huge. Maybe fear is the only end.
Far across the drowned skyline, emergency power returned to portions of the city. Towers flickered awake one by one through the rain and smoke. Meridian lived, changed forever, but alive. Lena looked toward the eastern harbor where floodwater covered the district, hiding the destroyed aperture beneath kilometers of wreckage and stone. Something ancient still waited under the city. Not sleeping now, listening, remembering, and somewhere deep beneath Meridian, far below the drowned foundations and shattered tunnels, a vast consciousness turned its attention toward humanity with patient curiosity. Not hatred, not mercy, something far more dangerous. Hope.
A strong ending. Meridian lived, but it is not the same city now. Please like, subscribe, and join me for next tale.